was saying. First off, somebody said that Lou Anarumo, his job is saved from Will Levis and Mason Rudolph. I don't think that that's what we're saying. We're not saying that just because he performed well against these guys. You have to take it 1 week at a time, and you have to take away the positives when it comes out of this. Like, this team, it is clear they are lacking at certain talent spots. And we're not saying that it is over now. We're sharing the same sentiment. A change should be made, but you have to see how they perform the rest of the season. And from what they've looked out of these past 2 weeks, there's a strong possibility where they continue to look good, especially against a Browns offense. And then you got the Broncos. So we got to see how they perform. But nobody is saying that Will Levis and Mason Rudolph saved Lou Anarumo's job. We're not saying that.
And again, we this is like such a fire culture, and even I'm guilty of it at times. But ideally, you know, what defensive coordinator are you hiring that's going to be able to work wonders with this exact unit that we have right here? Mm-hmm. Respectfully, you know, could they have made better coaching personnel decisions that maybe would have given them a couple more wins? Sure, 100%. And that's something that they have to wear as a coaching staff. But firing Lou, a guy that has proven to, you know, carry this team at points, I just don't believe that that's the right way to go about things personally.
And just even adding on to that, I think that when people are talking about this Lou Anarumo discussion, same thing with Zach Taylor, nobody is having the conversation about Zach Taylor, right? After this game, nobody's talking about the offense's poor performance, right?
I look at the situation as a whole, and I literally said midway through the season, scapegoating is happening in process. When the staff first came here, and I said, he is a good defensive coordinator. He needs to get his own guys in here. When everybody under the sun was saying, fire him. And that was after Duke and staff signed Preston Brown. That was after Duke and staff was persistent on believing that William Jackson was a cornerback one of the future and Carl Lawson was going to be an elite pass rusher for us. He said, no, those guys aren't going to be the guys for the future. They were a part of the bad defenses. He asked for his own guys in here. His own guys came in here. And guess what? They turned the defense around. They weren't an elite unit ever, but they created timely turnovers. They got the offense the ball back, and they were playing great. That's the point that we're missing here. They lose key players in every move that the front office has made since then has been reactionary. Losing DJ Reader, bringing in Sheldon Rankins, giving Sheldon Rankins a contract that no other team in the league would have given Sheldon Rankins was reactionary. Moving on from Jesse Bates, not making a real attempt to keep him because his agent wasn't willing to play hardball. Guess what? Was a mistake. So again, when you can remove yourself and your emotions from that, and you can look at the situation as a whole, not just that the defense is playing poorly. For me, I'm a person, I run a business. I have close to 50 employees. I look at the situation, and when things go haywire and things mess up, I don't complain about the situation. I look at the situation as a whole. What led us to this point? And then we try to figure out how to move forward. Guess what? If teams around the league thought Lou Anarumo was a shit defensive coordinator, he wouldn't have garnered as much interest as he did for head coaching candidacy. He wouldn't have. And you know what the narratives around the league, what people think? They lack talent. They lack talent. That's what the narrative is. Let's stop with this BS narrative that elite players on the defense didn't just walk out the door and they did nothing to replace them. Let's not act as if Trey Hendrickson has a functioning tag team partner on the opposite side of him when he's the only true pass rusher on this team. There's only so much money to go around and so much allocated resources to go to specific units. When are we going to look at Duke Tobin and staff at this as a whole and look at them and say that they have missed on some picks, a lot of picks that has led them to this point? When are we going to do that? Firing coaches over and over and over again is not always the answer. Marvin Lewis said, you can fire coaches as much as you want, but at some point, the players have to play. So when I speak on Lou, when I speak on Zach, when I speak on Pitcher, when I speak on whoever, please, like, if you guys know me, if you guys been watching my content for a while, don't look at my content and think that there's biases, relationships involved. I had an interview lined up with Cam Taylor-Britt literally right after I did the Jermaine Burton and Dejon Anthony interview. Daniel was my witness, and I ripped him. I don't care about relationships. I don't care about who I know, who I don't know. It's not about that. I want the team to do what's best for them. And I don't believe firing a defensive coordinator that has saved Zach Taylor's ass on more times than not with lesser talent, with makeshift defensive line is the answer. He lost cornerback one. What did they do to help him? He lost one of his very good rotational pieces in Cam Sample. What did they do to help him? Right. So it brings me to that point that this dude has literally worked wonders with what they've given him at points since he's been the defensive coordinator, whether that be an Eli Apple ad, right? We've seen it. So let's not act like he's dealing with some elite players on the defensive side of the ball outside of one building block and Trey Hendrickson on this team who's still performing the way he's performing. That's just my thought process.
Yeah. And I think you're right. I think you're right when it comes to this whole thing. And it's a conversation that we're pinpointing one specific guy in Lou Anarumo. Obviously, it's his unit, the defensive side. But for me, the struggle is when there is no conversation when it comes to the offensive side of the ball. And that's been in many games. You look at, like I said, the Chiefs game, the Ravens game. There's been so many games where the Bengals offense has made mistakes. There's been so many games. You look at the Cowboys game last week to where you can point and say, if the Bengals would have lost that game, the Bengals offense was the reason why they could have lost that game. 3rd and 2, you're running a wheel route to T. Higgins deep down the field, incomplete. You go get a field goal. But that's the difference that we're trying to talk about on the show is the narrative is it's all on the Bengals defense. And what we're trying to discuss is football is played in 3 phases: offense, defense, and special teams. And it is very clear the Bengals fan base and what the national media is discussing is one aspect of that, and that's the defense. For us, we're going to discuss all 3 aspects. If we want to discuss all 3 aspects of today, the Bengals offense didn't perform up to par. They had 3 turnovers and 3 very massive turnovers. You can say, well, the Bengals defense forced 7. The Bengals offense still gave away the ball 3 times. So if we want to discuss, oh, well, that was against a great, or a bad Bengals or Titans offense, so the Bengals defense should have looked great. Well, how does this Bengals game go if they played a great Steelers defense? So that's the part of the conversation. We're not just pinpointing, shying away from the defense. We're discussing, but we also have to discuss the offense. Today, the offense, many times, and one of the reasons why I think Joe Burrow was frustrated on the sideline is because the offense had, 14 penalties. They were the most penalized, team over the past 3 weeks. And a lot of that goes to the offense. So, albeit you're playing without your 2 offensive tackles, Orlando Brown, Cody Ford were out, the offense still had serious problems today. And that's something that we're also not talking about. So